Half a Day Flosstube. This is Lynette at Homesteading on the Homefront. It is Monday, September 10th, 2018. The kids are back at school. My parents are at their cabin in New Hampshire, so I had a quiet house and I decided to film because it's been a while. Our local fair has come and gone, so I have some FFOs to show you that I did for that, and let's get to it. First of all, I have some thank yous. Number one, Joan and Kelly sent a package for the 'Tis the Season sale. And so Mama Joan sent one of her beautiful bags. And Kelly sent a matching Bitsy Bob. So, look, it's magic. They stick. They stick to the Bitsy Bob instead of my clothing, which is fantastic. So thank you, Kelly. She also sent a couple for the girls, so we're enjoying that. And then Liz at Country Stitches sent some patterns for us. I didn't take these out of the packages, so I hope you can see them. This is Garden Time Sewing Bag from Nikki's Creations, and a Little House Spring, and a Christmas Meow. So thank you, Liz. Those are definitely going to get stitched at some point. And Lori sent some of her thread drops. So I'm looking forward to using these because I've been wanting to try them, and now I can. I told Lori that all of my punches are in storage, and so I was debating actually buying a punch to make some thread drops, and now I don't have to. Okay, that's it for thank yous. Thank you, ladies. It's always fun getting some stitchy mail. Very recently, the Just Cross Stitch 2018 Christmas ornament issue came out. I subscribed last year to the magazine. I got a digital subscription, mostly because I wanted last year's Christmas ornament issue. So I got that issue. I got all of the issues leading up to this year, and I kind of thought that my subscription would end right before this year's Christmas ornament edition came out, but that was not the case. I got the email that it was online and I was able to have access to it. Obviously can't do a flip through. I'm sure that you'll be seeing flip throughs from other floss tubers if you're interested. There were some ornaments that I found and printed out because I intend to stitch them. Overall, my impression of this year's issue is much like last year's, and it was many of my favorite designers were not represented, and that was a disappointment. So I will show you the designs that I printed out and intend to stitch. I folded them ahead of time, so I don't have to worry about showing the charts. But there's a barn. You know I had to stitch that, right? And here's another barn. And I like this one, but I don't like the gold outline, so I think I'm just going to leave that off and make it a circular ornament rather than a square. These next two remind me of an ornament that I stitched earlier in the year, so I'm going to make these to match. And in this one, I think that might mean making the deer white and the tree red. We'll see. And I just love this one because, you know, it's all about, it's the year of the cardinal, right? And then my favorite two, probably, this one is from My Big Toe. I always love their ornaments, and I've got them on my tree. And then finally, this one I'm going to rework because Elf is our favorite movie. And so I think I'm going to make this one say Christmas Cheer instead of Merry Christmas. So I will be working on those probably in November. I'll talk about my stitchy plans later on, but I think that's when I'm going to have the chance to do those. Okay, so our local fair came and went. And so that's part of the reason why it's been so long since I've filmed an episode, because for like the week leading up to the fair, I was frantically trying to get everything finished and framed. And then they were at the fair. So it was almost a 2-week period where I just had no time, and then I didn't have my stitching, so I couldn't show them to you. So I'm going to show you what I did for the fair. Only one of these entries have you seen FFO'd. Well, one of the framed pieces. So I'll save that one for last. The first one I'm going to show you is actually my favorite. I love how she turned out. This is Sally Spencer by Birds of a Feather. This is the one, remember I personalized it with Nettie because it rhymed with Sally, and little one thought that would be a good idea. The frame actually is one of those, you know, where you buy the size that you need and then you assemble the frame yourself. I actually purchased these at a, we call it a junk store, a cheap store in Pennsylvania, and I think they were 99 cents per side. So this whole frame cost me $2. I slapped some chalk paint on it, and I think it turned out great. Now the story behind this one, so the fair opens on Friday, and Thursday is kind of a prep day, and Wednesday is when you drop all of your things off, and everything except the vegetables get judged. And so I dropped all of our stuff off, and then I was there. I actually got to judge the like the kindergarten paintings and drawings, which was fun. But because I was there, when I was done, I got to kind of sneak peek at all of my entries. And I could have sworn that this one had a second place ribbon, which was fine. I don't enter pieces into the fair, you know, to win. I enter because I want to make sure that cross stitch is represented. And so I kind of get a chuckle out of it because, like I said, this is my favorite piece. I just love how she turned out framed. And so on Friday, we went back to the fair. It was open. You know, we got full access to all of the exhibits and stuff. And lo and behold, there's a first place ribbon on it. And I thought that was kind of weird. So I said, well, maybe I, you know, the second place was hanging on something else that was near here and it was just hanging over, and I thought, I was confused. But then I ran into a lady who, she wasn't a judge, but she was working in the handiwork building. And she said, you caused some commotion with your stitching. And I was confused. And I said, what do you mean commotion? Like, I didn't mean to. And she said, no. Your tea staining. The judges thought your piece was dirty. So if you can see, like, right up here, see that? And there's other places right down here. And so then the light dawned on me, because she said we had to explain that no, tea staining is to antique a piece. So I said, oh, so they gave me a second because they thought my piece was dirty, and then they realized it was supposed to be like that, and so they changed it to a first. So all of the judging at our local fair is done using the Danish system, which means you're not judged against other works. You are judged, I guess this is how 4-H does their things too, but if you meet certain standards, then you get a first place, and if you don't, then you get a second place, you know. So, and then sure enough, on the back they have comments, and there were comments that were erased. and I can make it out. It says, but some staining around the edge of fabric. And they erased that. So anyway, I'm telling you this story because not every fair out there is going to be judged by members of an embroidery guild or people who are familiar with modern stitching practices. Some of them are going to be judged by people who were stitching in the 80s and might not be stitching anymore. So it's important to know your fair. And I know that's the case with this fair. And like I said, I entered because I wanted to make sure cross stitching was represented. There's another local fair in the area that happens the week before ours, and there was not one single piece of cross stitch entered in that fair. So anyway, all that to say, if you enter a piece in your fair and you don't get a first or you don't do as well as you thought, it might not be you. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so that was Sally. This one, actually, I think you have seen this one FFO'd. This was my Union Forever. There's a lot of glare going on, but there's a lot of staining in this one too, right? Because it's a Civil War piece. I wanted to make it look old. And again, on the back, comments erased about staining of fabric. Just cracks me up. This one you definitely haven't seen because I finished it about 3 days before the fair ended. This is Anna Grader, who I am renaming Dolly Abbott. I talked to you about her in my last video, but here she is done. I'm sorry for the glare. But as you can see, I put in her birth date, her death date, and then this here is her marriage date when she married Samuel Jones. So I love how she came out. I got this frame at a thrift store. I think I might have paid $3 for it. I had this frame before I started the piece. So if you remember, originally Anna Grader is a little longer. She's not meant to be a square piece, but I really wanted her to fit into this frame. So I cut out, I think there was supposed to be another line of writing. And so I made fewer letters, and I just love her. On the back, and I wanted to encourage you guys with this too. I put a little piece of writing, and it says, Mary Dolly Abbott was born on April 14th, 1763 to George and Mary Whitney. The Abbotts came to Woodstock, Connecticut from Andover, Mass. Several generations earlier. It was the Woodstock Fair that I was entering this in, so I wanted to make sure that they knew she was a Woodstock girl. Many online trees list Dolly's parents as being another couple from Ashford, Connecticut, but my information is taken from a family tree written by a distant cousin, Bertha May Robinson, to my grandparents in the mid-1900s. On March 31st, 1793, Dolly became the third wife of Samuel Jones of Woodstock. She died March 19, 1843, and is buried with one of her granddaughters in the Congdon plot at Corbin Cemetery in Dudley, Massachusetts. Unfortunately, there is no gravestone for her, which means there is only one memorial to her life in existence, and you are holding it in your hands. Dolly and Samuel's son Luther had a daughter, Josephine Amelia. Her daughter, Oradell, had my grandfather, Robert Brown, which makes Dolly my fourth great-grandmother. So now everyone in future generations will know the significance of Dolly Abbott. Okay, this one I stitched way back in December, January. I think it was January, February, maybe. I could not find a frame that I liked for it. So ultimately it came down to the fact that I just needed an 8x10 and I slapped it in an 8x10 frame. I wanted to paint the frame black, but my husband and my mother said no, they liked the wood. I don't know, the wood looks 80s to me, but all that to say that this probably isn't staying in this frame. Now this one was displayed like this, right? And I'm like, ooh, it's a big pretty ribbon. I got a big pretty ribbon. You see that? 5th place. So this one was entered in the special theme contest. Every year they have a special theme in the handiwork department. And it's not like the other departments. You are actually being judged against everyone else who entered that contest. And this year's theme was Winter Wonderland. And they absolutely got this right. There were 2 other cross-stitch pieces entered. One got 3rd place and the other got 2nd place, I think. And one was one of those Christmas stockings I know you've all seen from one of the older magazines. But it must have been done over 1 on 40 count. It was so tiny. So that absolutely deserved to beat this one out. And then the other one was a beautiful church that was loaded with Krynic. So again, absolutely deserved to beat this one out. There were some gorgeous quilted pieces. So I'm not mad about this. Like, this is, it's the way it should be. But it's still a pretty ribbon. It's 5th place. So that one is that. And what else do I have here? 2 more framed pieces. This one you haven't seen framed. You've seen it finished. This is my Miss Baxter's Cottage, which I changed up and added my own little verse to. Yeah, there's no Miss Baxter in my Miss Baxter's Cottage. But I found this frame at a yard sale. I knew it would fit perfectly. And so she also got a 1st place. Special shout out to my husband, by the way, because part of the rules of the fair state that everything needs to have wire on it for hanging. And so he did all that for me. And then this one you haven't seen finished either. And this is another one, I just needed to get it in a frame because I couldn't find a frame that I loved for it. So this is Blackbird Designs Feliz Navidad. And this is another one that I changed up slightly so that it would fit into a standard size frame. There's no glass on this piece. I think because I bought the frame at a thrift store and it didn't have glass. Oh, no. What it was it was frosted glass. And so you couldn't see the stitching because of the frosting. So I think this is another frame that I'm going to paint up. I got some reddish color antique paint. So I think I'm going to try that. But I love this design. I love the colors. And as you can see, I didn't put Merry Christmas or Feliz Navidad or anything in it because I wanted it out all year round. And then finally, the piece that you have seen FFO'd is my Navy Wife's Prayer. This is originally Nantucket Girls Song by Paulette at Plum Street. So it got a 1st place, but it also got the Superintendent's Award. So another fancy ribbon. And this one actually, the Superintendent of Handicrafts department goes around, I think I saw maybe 3 of them, but she just puts them on the pieces that she likes. So I was thrilled that Nantucket Girl got one of them because this is one of my favorite pieces and I can't wait to hang her somewhere when we find a house. This frame, when we were in Guam, it dropped and one of the corners came unglued. And so my husband glued it back for me because I reworked this project to fit this frame. So he glued it back for me, but there was like, you know, glue all over the side because it squished out. And so my dad very carefully with his jackknife scraped the glue off, and then he sanded it, and then I painted it with chalk paint. So it was a happy thing because it was much more shiny, and now it's got that dull country primitive chalk paint finish. So I do like it better. I did enter some little ornaments, but you've already seen those already, so I'm not going to show them. So that was our fair. And next year's special theme is Grandma's Attic. And so right now I'm intending to enter Quaker Handiwork in that. Now that the fair is over, I can officially finish it and enter it into next year. So I just need to put some initials on that and she's done. So hopefully the next video I do, you will see a Quaker Handiwork finished. The other lesson that I learned is that do not wait until the week before the fair to frame your pieces. Now, in fairness to me, this year I had to, because we did not get our express shipment of belongings from Guam until mid-August, and so that's where my frames were. But now that we are here in the area, I can frame as I go, and the week before fair next year won't be as stressful. So learn from my mistake, people. Okay, so stitching that I have been doing. Like I said, I finished Anna Grader. And so then I had a few days to work on His Eye is on the Sparrow. And then September 1st started the 'Tis the Season sale. I'm not going to show you the picture of it. You've all seen it. You know what it looks like. It's gorgeous. And so I started stitching up, and I've got it on my scroll rod, so I'm kind of awkward here. But this is what I have so far. Isn't she beautiful? I am using a complete mishmash of threads. I'm using some from Nancy Turner. I'm using some from my stash. The red of the cardinal, I'm not going to lie here, I struggled with the red. I wanted a variegated look. Nancy's red was beautiful, but I just wanted more variegation. So I was going to go last Friday because Bush Mountain Stitchery had their soft opening last Friday. 2 Fridays ago? 2 Fridays ago. Or maybe it was last Friday. When I started stitching, that's what it was. I stitched all the leaves and the stem, and I wasn't going to stitch the bird until I went to Mayan's and I could look at threads and see them in person and choose what I wanted for the red. Then I realized that that Friday was the Broomfield Flea Market. Now, for those of you who have never heard of Broomfield, it is a world-famous antique market. Fields and fields and fields of vendors. It's a small itty-bitty town. The roads are not built to withstand the traffic. And I would have to drive through Broomfield in order to get to Palmer. And I was like, no, it's not going to happen. I'm a New England girl. I know how to make do. So I decided, thanks to somebody in the Flosstube, the 'Tis the Season Flosstube page, somebody had posted their cardinal, and they were using the DMC variegated red. I think it's 114. I may be wrong about that. And I really liked it. And I knew that I had already bought 2 skeins of it to try for this. So I was looking at the thread and realized that I didn't love like the darkest maroony color in there because it was too dark for me. But I really wanted to use it. So what I did was I just cut the dark portions out of the skein. I unrolled the whole skein and I cut the dark portions out, and I'm saving them from another project because I'll use it eventually. So I am getting variegation. I don't know if you can see. It's not stark variegation, but it's enough for me. And then I'm changing the wording, so it's going to say blessings be thine, because I wanted this to hang up all winter long. And so basically what you see is I think we started, what was it, Saturday? This is like that first weekend's worth of stitching, basically. I put some stitches in last night, but not many. And so I was like floored at how fast this was going. I thought the cardinal was going to take days with all that red. No. So I realized that like I needed to slow down or I was going to be done in less than a week, way less than a week. So I made the decision that this would be my weekend project because I wanted it to last. So I am stitching on it only on the weekends, and I had very little opportunity this weekend to stitch on it because it was a busy weekend for us, which is fine because it'll last longer. But I love the way that it's stitching up. There are people in our Facebook group who have been done. There's one lady who's actually, she stitched it up as called for or pretty close, and then she finished it so quickly that she stitched it on black using red and white floss because those are her daughter's colors in her kitchen. It's stunning. So it's so neat to see how different the pieces are. Some people are using the French words, some people are using the English words, some people are stitching the words in red, some people are stitching the words in green, and it's just amazing how different everyone's looks, even though it's the same design and basically the same colors. So I'm really enjoying that. It's a great stitch. Okay, so I'm going to show you Sparrow. Usually I save my updates for when I stitch with my friends, but I'm not sure that we're going to get to stitch together in September because the three other gals are teachers, and so they are back to work, and finding time to get together isn't easy now that they're in full swing. But this is mine so far. I had a page finish. I was so excited. So basically from here up is the top left corner, and I'm starting the next page, which is the bird and down. So I'm loving the colors. I'm loving the stitch. I can't wait to get back to it. And so basically my stitching plans are thus. I'm going to work on the cardinal on the weekends. I might have another weekend or two left on it, depending on how crazy our schedule is. And then during the week, I'm stitching on Sparrow because I really want to stitch on this project right now. Once I finish 'Tis the Season, I'll be stitching on Sparrow exclusively until I get sick of it. And then once I get sick of it, it'll be October, and I figured it's a great opportunity to start out on Christmas ornaments. So I'll do some of the ornaments from the Just Cross Stitch magazine that I showed you earlier. I will do some that I brought with me from Guam and take it from there. I've got a little more to talk to you about, but my camera's going to shut off in a minute. So I'll save, it's not really important. I'll save it for the next video. It was fun visiting with you again. I miss watching, so I need to get back to that. I need to figure out how to do that without disturbing the rest of the household. But anyway, I wish you happy stitching. Enjoy the cooler weather if you're lucky enough to be able to have that like we are here in New England. Until we meet again, fair winds and following seas.